This week saw Israel's government disband and new elections scheduled. After a year that saw remarkable progress on a host of issues, both domestic and foreign, Prime Minister Bennett's coalition broke apart when vast disagreements between its component parties could not be overcome. Now, if the heads of 8 Israeli political parties could not remain united, the heads of the 12 tribes of Israel sent by Moses to explore the promised land of Canaan probably never stood a chance. This week's Torah portion, Parashat Shelach, tells how, despite largely agreeing on the facts, only 2 of the 12 men Moses sent came back with a positive report, while 10 came back with a negative report. The land cannot be taken, its defenders are too strong, its cities too fortified. In response to this report, God decreed that the Israelites will wander the wilderness for 40 years, until all the adults die and a new generation arises, possessing the requisite confidence and faith in God. While most rabbinic commentators see this as a punishment by God, Maimonides takes a different approach. He claims that the punishment was really a ruse, that God's plan from the beginning had been to quarantine the Israelites in the wilderness. After having just been slaves for over 200 years in a pagan, oppressive Egypt, it would have been too much to ask the Israelites to build an ethical monotheistic society of their own. Therefore, God meant to keep them in the wilderness, to rehabilitate them, to re-educate them, to wait until a generation that did not bear this trauma and scars of slavery to come of age. In other words, for Maimonides, the inability of the leaders of these 12 tribes to come back with a good report was not the reason the Israelites wandered for 40 years. They would have done that anyway. Instead, their failure reflected the larger reality that the Israelites were simply not yet ready to move forward. And despite the recriminations from all sides as to who is to blame for the failure of Israel's government to last much longer than a year, I suspect Maimonides' analysis holds true here as well. The issues and events that strained this coalition past its breaking point all involved Israel's relations with the Palestinians. The coalition's collapse, more than any single politician's fault, reflects Israeli society writ large, which simply does not know how to move forward in navigating the current Israeli-Palestinian reality. The challenge faced by Israel's leaders is profound. Unlike their biblical predecessors, there is no wilderness here to retreat to. The Palestinians are here, among them, and nobody is going anywhere. Rather than starting from a blank slate, both sides are enmeshed in a place of trauma and mistrust. There's a hopeful note to the biblical story of the spies. It turned out that the Israelites had the capacity to enter the promised land the entire time. They just needed encouragement and the right mindset to develop the right culture and the right frame of mind. In today's iteration of Jewish leaders, as the state of Israel chooses the path it will follow in the weeks, months, and years to come, hopefully the same is true for us today as well. Shabbat Shalom.